While there are many anime I love, none are quite as underrated as Zombieland Saga. Interesting characters, enthralling plot, slappy music, and above all else, a delicious sense of humor. Essentially, the show is about an eccentric man bringing 7 girls from various time periods back from the dead as, you guessed it, zombies. He plans to form an idol group to revitalize the Saga prefecture, and while this is the central plot, the characters' personal stories obviously create various subplots. Zombieland Saga does what a lot of shoujo does right, tackling fewer characters in order to more thoroughly write the ones they already have. The first character to note is Kotaro Tatsumi, the necromancing manager. You start off knowing very little about his motive for forming this group other than the base explanation: he wants to revive Saga. He's so chaotic and constantly pulling ideas out of his ass that you start to think that this is all there is to his character. Then they drop like one subtle flashback and suddenly you realize his goals are probably more personal than he lets on. Either way, his character sets up a large chunk of the plot points and his jokes always land. And as someone who is pretty unbiased in the whole sub versus dub debate, both voice actors absolutely crushed it.
What makes you so legendary, huh, Sakura? Not a damn thing!
In my opinion, Sakura's character functions as intended, but she's no protagonist to write home about. Then again, I don't think she's meant to be. Since the other 6 zombies are certified legendary, the point of Sakura's character is to be the normal high schooler. And Sakura rides a fine line between satirical basic protagonist and actual basic protagonist, but it's nothing distracting or bad. Her death was what starts off the show, and if you've ever seen a clip of Zombieland Saga, it was probably this one. It's such a funny play on the typical anime go get 'em first day of school type of opening, and while it's fun to laugh at, it does tie into Sakura's whole personal plight later. She's always had bad luck, and the one time she decides to be positive and try, she dies. Her character mirrors the anime's main theme: no matter how often you fail, don't give up. It's a pretty common narrative, but the show plays it out in a very unique way. And like the other characters, Sakura's design and manner of speech gives you a sense of when she's from. Her outfit is modern and she speaks in a current way, seemingly aware of how to navigate the world in 2018. When the show tells you that she's only been dead for 10 years before waking up as a zombie, it makes sense. And what makes Sakura unique, sans being the only unlegendary zombie, is that she doesn't remember life before being a zombie. She understands how the world works and what makes a zombie different from a human, but concerning her life personally, she only remembers small flashes. I think this just has to do with the way she died, but it could be deeper. I'm not sure yet.
She conquered all of Kyushu at the turn of the century as the leader of the Dorami biker gang. Cower before the legendary Saki Nikaido.
I knew the second I saw her zombie form flash on the screen that she'd be my favorite. She's the snarky, headstrong, blunt one of the group. She used to be the leader of a 90s biker girl gang and stresses that she values having guts above all else. She, ironically, frequently asks, "Do you want to die?" when someone pisses her off, which, they're already dead. This and her flashbacks involve her assuring her best friend that she'll never die. In fact, I'm pretty sure "there's no way I'm gonna die" were like her last words before dying. Certified legend indeed. I also love that her outfit is a tad rebellious, not only indicating the time she was alive in, but the nature of her personality. And when I was watching, I was so sure Saki would be the hardest zombie to convince about this whole idol group thing, but the second Sakura earns her respect, Saki is kind of just along for the ride, which I guess makes sense too. And since Saki is the only one with such strong ties to Saga, being born, raised, and dying there, she's often the most aware of Kotaro's plans, even hyping them up. And when we go through each character's tragic and untimely death, hers is the only one I wasn't upset about, because she died in a way that is just so her. And that whole episode is honestly some of the coolest storytelling I've seen in a while, and it did wonders in defining her character even further. Like, I was so busy thinking she'd be this unapproachable bully that I wasn't expecting her to be this giant idiot who loves chicken and dangerous stunts.
After the year 2000, when all the major idol groups were at war, she was the implacable center for the #1 group, Iron Frill, legendary Heisei period idol, Ai Mizuno!
Ai is one of the only 2 zombies who were actually idols in their time alive, Ai being a more modern idol who died in 2008, 10 years before the show's start. In this way, she's objectively the most knowledgeable regarding idol stuff, which not only acts as a realistic reason they progress so quickly as a group, but also adds a layer of complexity, because each girl has a very different definition of what being an idol means. And while Ai is a bit angsty, valid, regarding her past as an idol and being one now as a zombie, you can tell she sees this as a second chance. And Ai's character is really important this way. I said that the show's message is to never give up, and that Sakura embodies this message. However, Sakura only decides to live this way once she hears this quote from Ai.
I don't know, I guess it's because I've never really thought of mistakes or failures as being a bad thing. They always end up helping me with whatever happens next.
And what I appreciate is that making at least one of the 3 previously famous girls snotty and reserved would have been super easy, but the show wants to demonstrate genuine passion in different forms. And while Ai and Junko's characters are arguably very similar, I enjoy that they represent the difference in what an idol was in the 1980s versus the late 2000s. In fact, their personalities being arguably similar only makes the time difference between their moments of fame that much more distinguishable. In my opinion, Ai's death is the most gruesome, from the ones we've seen at least, because not only did she die, but she was fried to fuck in front of a live studio audience. And I looked up the timeline because I fucking love when there's enough lore for timelines, and Ai only died a few months after Sakura, which is important because Ai's death would have been monumental in Sakura's life, whereas Sakura's death didn't mean anything to Ai. Point is, Ai is a very simple character, but I think what she represents in the show is super important. She's having to prove that she means what she says about not letting failure stop her.
This girl single-handedly gave rise to the idol boom of the 1980s. The legendary Showa period idol, Junko Kono!
Junko, for me, is where the times of their deaths start to get fun. That sounded morbid. But associating Yugiri with the 1800s is easy because it's so removed from our physical lifetime, and associating the girls who died in 2008 and 2011 is super easy because we still associate that with the present. And the late 90s is also easy for me, at least, because that's when I was born, so I pictured it as like a not far past. But the fact that baby boomer-ass Junko died a year after the bop that is Safety Dance was released, but was still shook by a simple Google search, is just fucking with me. Even her outfit feels old, but like not too old. Like the show nails it. I guess this makes up for me caring the least about her character, and I mean no offense by that. She serves a good purpose, juxtaposing Ai's modern take on being an idol with a more outdated, glamorized version. I just wished they delved a bit more into her death, because while it's rather straightforward, I feel like she would have been a bit curious as to the public response to her passing, like I was to hers. I also like that they show the difference between a group idol, Ai, and a solo idol, Junko. TLDR, I prefer how their characters function together rather than as individuals.
From the turbulent times spanning the death of the shogunate into the Meiji era, the legendary courtesan known only as Yugiri.
I absolutely lost my shit when we were going between all of these girls born in the latter half of the 20th century, and then we get a literal courtesan from the 19th century. Like, she out of all of the characters has the right to be confused, and instead this bitch is like, yeah, not gonna bother questioning too much, and just becomes a pop idol? And I don't know much Japanese, but I can only imagine the writers used her manner of speech as a clear indicator of her time period. Both voice actresses slayed the role, but her Japanese voice actress was absolutely doing the most and crushed it. Anywho, she's the only backstory/death we didn't get explained, but based on that neck, the common assumption is that it was some form of beheading. Her style is obviously reflective of her time period, and I hope we get to see more of her in the future because she's probably my second favorite.
After her debut in a long-running period drama, she left her mark on every network in the nation. Legendary child actress prodigy, Lily Hoshikawa!
Lily took a while to grow on me because I often find younger characters to be a bit annoying. But she did grow on me. She combats Yugiri's maturity with her own immaturity, and I find it interesting that the oldest feeling member of the group was from the longest to go, while Lily, the youngest feeling and physically youngest, died most recently. Even if Lily isn't my favorite character, her story was the only one that made me cry. The fact her death was most recent and her father is still clearly torn up and guilty, it felt really fresh. I mean, it was only 7 years ago that she died. Also, this may be the first time in an anime that I've seen a trans character being treated like a proper character with personal traits and goals and a story. It's also good to see a healthy dynamic between Lily and her father, but I will admit her death felt really sudden to the point I didn't realize she was dead at first. But it's interesting how they reference this in her design, which, once again, hints at not only her bubbly personality, but the time period she's from. I do wish the show would play on the fact she's the only character who could have heard of some, if not all of the other girls and their deaths. Like, I can only assume that Ai knew of Junko, but Junko probs didn't know of any of them, and obviously Sakura knows of Ai, but wouldn't Lily also know of Ai and Junko, but Ai and Sakura probably knew Lily because of the time? I don't know.
The legendary Tai Yamada!
Huh?
And now you know everything you need to know about the rest of the girls.
Wait, hang on a second. Sorry, I think I missed something. Could you repeat that? The legendary...
Diameter!
Okay, I swear I didn't cheat, but the second I saw all of the zombies, I said to my brother, I bet one of them will stay like an actual zombie for comedic effect. And I was right, but I did not think they'd run with this for the entire season. I love the mystery, and the show can definitely use her character to their advantage later, but Taya is simply introduced as legendary. No specifics. And while she's still a zombie that isn't conscious, she seems to understand the girls to some level slightly more and more with each episode. And really quick before I switch from talking about characters, I want to mention that the show, about 7 zombie girls in an idol group, especially considering the fact there was a bathhouse episode, had many opportunities to sexualize their characters. In fact, I went in preparing for the worst. But really nothing bad happened. I mean, sure, we still have Sakura having some vacuum-packed toddies, but the eccentric man is pervy trope wasn't hit, nor was the sensual woman only speaks of sex trope. I didn't have to cringe. I know the bar could not possibly be lower right now, but I just have to say that it was refreshing. Humor is this show's strong suit. Episode 1 was a little funny, haha, but if you stick it out to episode 2, after the girls all wake up, I swear to God you'll be laughing your ass off. Wikafuckia is forever ingrained in my head now, and this could be personal, but the humor uses a lot of awkward cuts and silences for effect, which is right up my alley. Deadpan responses and changes in tone, sarcasm. It hits really hard if that's what you're into. And like I said, in a show where the characters experienced death and revival, a few even facing people from the past, the humor is an interesting comparison to the heart-wrenching scenes that will literally happen a second later, or honestly, the humor and sadness often overlap. The show feels so random, but after a few scenes, you stop questioning it. In this fictional universe, these weird things like being able to pop a head back on aren't the parts you're meant to question, so we're able to relax around the rigid rules of zombie biology and simply let the body part popping off gags make us chuckle. I feel like some of the songest soundtracks are hidden in underrated shows. Shout out to Dusk Maiden of Amnesia. But Zombieland Saga most certainly has variety. They start off with metal and then have rap, then typical idol pop. That's what the group sings in story. But if you're talking about the show's soundtrack, there is one song that plays whenever the characters get serious, and it's so fucking cool.
Why? Wait!
Like, I'm seriously considering downloading it and playing it whenever I need to monologue. Oh, and not to mention how cool the opening song is. It's not only performed by Franchouchou, the show's idol group, but it's matched with the girls, zombies dancing, and then some like lost crayon pop music video. It's super catchy and fun to watch. Okay, so I talked about a good deal of the plot already, but overall the concept is easy to follow. And as someone who usually prefers shonen-style anime, this show is refreshing compared to a lot of the underdeveloped and confusing plots I'm used to. It's unrealistic, obviously, but the idea that some dude brought 7 girls to life to form a pop group is pretty simple. It's the fact the show derives itself from here that impresses me. Like I said, the show makes it clear you've got to suspend your disbelief for some things and not overthink logic. The girls slap on some makeup and look like they're not dead. Cool. And while this inevitably forces us into an H2O just add water scenario, Kotaro just slaps some shoe water repellent thing on them and voila. They can perform in the rain in order to pull at Ai's traumatic backstory. I also love that the show can range from slice of life to genuinely heartbreaking storytelling. The narrative seamlessly connects shooting a chicken commercial, to Mud Olympics as a publicity stunt, to my father recognizes me, but for the sake of both his sanity and my role in this new zombie life, I have to pretend I'm not his daughter and instead sing a song about how I still love him. This is the one thing that bothers me about the plot, perhaps. Like, the girls don't look different at all. Raiko literally has a picture of Saki looking identical to how she looks now, and it takes her saying something she said in the past for Raiko to even entertain the thought that the resemblance is uncanny. Like I said, this show suggests that the viewer should not read too heavily into what's believable, so they're off the hook on this one. But I feel like they're setting up for the whole recognizing the girls as their past selves thing to be relevant next season. Did I mention there's a season 2 in the works? Fuck yeah! The season finale felt a bit anticlimactic, probably because Sakura's angst felt less crucial to the show compared to the other personal stories, but even when this anime was at its worst, I still loved it. And I can't really complain about the season 1 finale when, unlike most other shoujo, Zombieland Saga isn't going to be sentenced to an eternity of only having one season. The art style is also rather unimpressionable, but it works as it should. The switch between how they perceive themselves as zombies to how others perceive them is not only funny, but it sets up a decent amount in terms of perspective and genuine danger they're in if their secret ever gets exposed. The jokey horror scenes are animated well, and the characters are sharply designed, but the art style lacks character, a common but by no means deal-breaking situation. It's well animated still, just nothing too distinct. I will say, the switch in animation during their performances from "this is a cute anime" to "even season 1 Ruby would reject this" is a bit jarring. However, like my brother said to me, if they switch from this atrocity to anything else for season 2, I'll be a bit disappointed and it'll lose something for me. I think what makes this anime particularly slappy is that it has a little something for everyone. I've never seen an idol anime, but I'm sure Zombieland Saga attracts that crowd. A little bit for the horror lovers, some of the shoujo, those of us who love the power of friendship and emotional scenes. It has lore and some unique ideas. The show gives me similar vibes to Dusk Maiden and Angel Beats. Notions of being dead, but not dead while exploring the personal stories in ways that uncover some darker topics. I will say though, I worry that I can never watch Dusk Maiden again, so it's nice to have a dead not dead protagonist who cannot remember the past or cause of her death trying to regain normalcy by enjoying the day-to-day life as part of a modern group without constant references to tits. Anyway, if you like this kind of paranormal stuff while still maintaining a lighthearted tone, this show really is a must-watch. Season 2 is set for spring 2021, but even if it ends up being pushed back, I'm just glad that some loose ends will be tied.